52 innocent people were killed on 7/7 and 784 were injured. Although the tragic events are still fresh in many people's minds, this hasn't stopped some conspiracy theorists in their aggressive and ugly pursuit of what they think is the truth.
Let me guess, this company did not have anything to do with 7/7? Question mark, question mark. Controlled demolitions must mean you know how to detonate explosives, right? You may have used remote controls whilst driving past a bus at that moment. Strange, huh? I think the conspiracy theorists behind it need something a little bit more in their lives to do. It was a terrible thing that happened. A lot of innocent people were caught up in it, and I think maybe their thoughts should be with those innocent people.
Rachel North is a 7/7 survivor who has taken on the conspiracy theorists. The reaction of some has been vicious.
If people come on and tell me I'm a lying Zionist bitch, that I'm Islamophobic, prejudiced, hateful, deceitful, front for the government, a source of misinformation, publishing my address, so they're going to pop round. You can certainly say I'm hostile to what they're saying, yeah.
This protester's video, posted on the web, shows a group accusing a former Scotland Yard police officer of being part of a government plot to murder innocent people on 7/7.
Who helped you choose those 3 stations?
He has also received hate mail from anonymous 7/7 skeptics.
Sorry, I've got to go in.
How does it feel to be involved in the murder of over 50 people? You bastards were there. Justice is coming for you rats. Now you must look over your shoulder for your part in the bombings. No mercy.
Peter Power is a crisis management consultant who helps companies prepare for emergencies. In 2003, the authorities staged a full-scale exercise at a tube station in the City of London, preparing for a terrorist chemical attack. On 7/7, Mr. Power was running an exercise for a private client, preparing it for a terrorist attack in London. Could his exercise have been used as cover by the real perpetrators of the attacks? When he gave several interviews that day, he certainly gave that impression to some.
At 9:30 this morning, we were actually running an exercise for over a company of 1,000 people in London, based on simultaneous bombs going off precisely at the railway stations that happened this morning.
Peter Power said his exercise envisaged simultaneous bombings precisely where it happened that morning. But was this coincidence or conspiracy?
Just to get this right, you were actually working today on an exercise that envisioned virtually this scenario?
Almost precisely.
In 7/7 Ripple Effect, Muad'Dib hangs much of his conspiracy theory on Peter's exercise.
Peter Power, dupe or accomplice?
Muad'Dib claims the 4 men blamed for 7/7 were duped into playing the parts of mock terrorists in Peter's exercise. The real culprits then detonated pre-planted explosives. The men were murdered and framed for the attacks. Muad'Dib has calculated the odds there was no conspiracy his own way.
The probability of the 7/7/2005 drill and attack coinciding is 1 chance in
371559265750000. For the first time, Peter is demonstrating exactly what he was doing that day.
It kicked off by showing a map of London, because our client is based right in the middle.
He is rerunning the actual exercise he began on the morning of the attacks.
Our scenario involved 3 bombs, Liverpool Street, King's Cross, here in Russell Square.
On 7/7, bombs went off on tube trains in the tunnels very close to 2 of the stations Peter chose. He says this was coincidence.
The London Underground system had already been bombed 18 times since 1885. So there was a pretty logical place to actually think about having a scenario. This really was what I call a no-brainer in terms of choosing it as a scenario for terrorism.
In the months before 7/7, a city bank and the Metropolitan Police both ran exercises rehearsing their response to bombings at tube stations. The police exercise took place just 6 days before 7/7.
They weren't doing it because they knew something in advance. It was common sense, not conspiracy. This was a projection of logical scenarios based as much on historical evidence as what could happen in the future.
Conspiracy theories ignore key facts about Peter's exercise. It was nothing like the 2003 full-scale exercise. Instead, it was entirely office-based. It involved just 6 people from Reed Elsevier, a publishing company.
Absolutely nobody involved, no one beyond the room involved at all, no telephone calls, no cast of Ben-Hur hidden round the corner. It was a gentle walkthrough based on a scenario, which tragically turned out to be somewhat more realistic than we realized.
More than a year before the 7/7/2005 attacks, on the 16th of May 2004, an edition of the BBC One Panorama programme broadcasted a mock exercise imagining what would happen if a terrorist attack was executed in London in the near future, consisting of 3 explosions on tube trains in the London Underground and 1 explosion on a road vehicle.
We now know much more about the attacks, but that hasn't stopped a significant number of people believing that the government could have been involved. Allegations of a ghost train, rumours of pre-planted explosives, mysterious warnings and talk of controlled demolition have taken root. Back at Birmingham Central Mosque, we were invited to a meeting to discuss the 7/7 attacks.
We are not talking about conspiracy, we are talking about an alternative view.
Like the 7/7 survivor Bruce Late, Dr. Nassim had also been sent a DVD anonymously in the post. Now he introduced 7/7 Ripple Effect at the meeting.
I don't know how many of you have watched the DVD, The Ripple Effect. Please raise hands who have watched the DVD. We have the DVDs, you can get it from the office. Please watch it.
Dr. Nassim made 2,000 copies of 7/7 Ripple Effect for the mosque.
A message from Muad'Dib.
The film's alternative theory of 7/7, in which the 4 British Muslims were deceived by the authorities and framed for the attacks, lands on fertile ground.
Actors or patsies?
This video is more compelling than the government version. The government has been lying from A to Z. Government lied about the weapons of mass destruction. Government lied Saddam Hussein's connection with Al-Qaeda. It's more than coincidence. What happened is exactly what it says in there.
So you think that the government could have caused July 7th?
Yes. I mean, after seeing this, nobody can doubt. My only question is how these people who have made this, the disc, where did they get the time and how did they observe the situation that they have been able to produce this? That is my only reservation. Other than that, I think if I know their source, of course I have no hesitation to accepting it.
If people, independent people, can compile DVDs like this within, a certain amount of time, using very little, they don't even have like what government resources have. How can they come up with this sort of stuff and make it so believable to the public? And why can't the government do the same to make the public believe that this stuff is true? Why can't they do that in time?
Why are we being asked, why do we trust the government's version? The question to be asked is, why should we trust the government?
Massive effect.
There is much suspicion about the government here, which helps conspiracy theories find favour.
Whether the bombings were done by MI5, the Israeli Mossad, or both of them and/or others, has yet to be determined. But the one thing that we can be sure of is that it was not done by 4 young Muslims.
the ripple effect is more convincing than the government statement.
Why do you say that?
Because of the issues it has raised, because the flaws it has pointed to, which agree with the flaws that have already been pointed by other people too.
The sleeper must awaken. The sleeper must awaken.
To many, these conspiracy theories are divisive.